Hi, my name is Lydia, and this is my case study presentation for Module 2. Let's see here. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Oh, there we go. So I chose, for my case, the student transgressions one, the gender identity and student support. A quick overview of the case. There's a student whose assigned name is Keith, and he came to school one day wearing a blonde wig and asking people to call them by a different name. Then people started bullying him, and the situation just kind of blew up. Mom came, picked him up, tried taking away his phone and his Xbox. Students at Redline, which is the school that this takes place at, bullied him. And teachers tried to discourage bullying, but were confused, and others didn't want to defend transgender behavior because of religious reasons. They weren't sure what was okay based off of the school standards, etc. Eventually, he was sent home because he got into a little kerfuffle in a class, and the teacher sent him to the office, and the office decided that the wig was a violation of the school's prohibition of hats rule and provocative clothing. He came to school the next day claiming that it was all just an experiment, but continues to experiment with feminine expression. So he comes later on and his fingernails are painted pink, and people freak out about that. People meaning his peers, his students. And they keep bullying him and harassing him online. 1 month later, the counselor and the 8th grade teachers are together discussing the event, and that's where this case study takes place. They also mentioned that a lot of cyberbullying is going on. So they try to take down, his mom eventually has him take down this photo that he posted of himself in the wig, but he keeps getting attacked. So in analyzing this case study, I have some initial questions. The first one being, has anyone besides mom or another trusted adult in the building talked to Keith, the individual who is wearing a wig, like a school social worker or the counselor? Because we have a lot of opinion going on in this case, coming from teachers, coming from the counselor, like a little bit of an internal monologue as well, but we don't hear from Keith at all, besides the hearsay that it was just an experiment or whatever. It gets brushed under the rug one day, but then he comes to school with painted fingernails again. Another question, was Keith's behavior distracting or disrespectful, or what did the other students who were picking on him, was Keith's, sorry, I think there's a typo in here, was Keith's behavior distracting or disrespectful, or was it the other students who were picking on him about his clothing? Sorry, that threw me off. It turns out that we don't know if Keith was maybe being disrespectful, or like, I want to know in the classroom setting, how did things escalate so quickly? What was the teacher doing when kids started calling him names? What were there any repercussions? Why did Keith get sent out of the room instead of the other kids? That's a little bit weird to me. If the class goes into an uproar over someone wearing pink nail polish, is the pink nail polish the problem? That's basically what I'm trying to get at. So this is what I would do if I were queen of the world in this scenario, or in charge. I would immediately set up a time to meet with Keith and ask him about my pressing questions. I would coordinate with a school social worker or counselor. So I want to know what Keith thinks, and I want to know what Keith thinks away from the noise, away from parents, away from peers. I want to know what's going on so we can actually hear from the kid himself. I would also have another meeting with the staff, regardless of Keith and I's conversation, and talk about the importance of supporting the LGBTQ plus community members. Statistically, Keith can't be the only LGBTQ person in the whole school. So I would, in this meeting, directly talk to the staff about the importance of honoring a kid no matter how they show up, and how it's our duty as teachers to ensure safe spaces. And I'll get more into the information that I would present after the next couple steps. Here, I would address concerns about a contradicting statement in the case study that a teacher brings up that says our school's community values, the values of our students and parents, do not really support transgender questioning or whatever is happening here. So that's a pretty dismissive statement. The whole case seems rather dismissive to me of Keith's experience. And that's really concerning. Whatever is happening, like this is a big deal. Whatever is happening here is a big deal to Keith. So it's, I don't think that even though it can be an uncomfortable conversation to have or an uncomfortable topic to talk about, or people may not know how to talk about it, it's important to honor Keith and their experience in school and make sure that they are taken care of, because the fact of the matter is they're being bullied and that's never okay. Also, I would remind them that Keith has the right to an education and agree that he has a right to choose. So within the case study, other teachers say, well, Keith should just choose where he goes, right? He has a right to choose where he goes to school. We can recommend that he leaves the school. But the flip side of that is Keith can also choose to stay, right? The right to choose should not be an excuse for the educators to say, bye, you can't be here, right? That's not okay. I feel like overall, these 2 points kind of lead us back to the bigger issue where Keith is not the center of concern. The concern is the community's values and the students who are bullying this person. And I don't think that that's the approach that I would take or the opinion that I have. The next thing that I would do is I would create a behavioral plan that ensures that Keith is safe no matter how Keith chooses to show up to school or how Keith is treated or addressed at home. So there's many different options for this. We could do kind of like a general education intervention where Keith is checked up on. There are strategies that are in place. We don't know much about Keith other than they choose to dress more feminine sometimes. So it could be that Keith qualifies for a 504 plan or something that I would write into a behavioral plan and ensure that Keith has a support system if Keith chooses to stay at the school. That ensures that no matter how Keith shows up to school or how Keith is treated or addressed at home, that school is a safe place that's conducive for Keith to learn things. I think it's important to remember that due to the repercussions of extreme bullying in person and online, this might need to include making some kind of an academic intervention plan. So Keith might not be able to function well in the classroom after this. There's a whole slew of really heavy issues that come with being bullied, not to mention questioning your own identity and exploring that in an environment that's not particularly safe, as the teachers have hinted at. Some teachers comment about how two parents are really worried about some boy acting like a girl in some classes as their children. Don't those parents have rights too? That's one of the bigger questions that a teacher brings up within this discussion about what to do about Keith. And I would probably address that by saying those parents are not students at the school and also have the right to choose, right? If they're focusing on the right to choose, awesome. They are not allowed to make the choice for another person or parent, right? So if Keith's mom makes the choice for him, that's great. Other parents cannot make Keith's choice, right? So those parents are not students at our school. Our focus should be on Keith and should be on creating an environment where everyone feels comfortable. And I could see getting some backlash about, well, my kid doesn't feel comfortable and that's why they're bullying or something like that. But that kind of goes back to the idea of not discriminating. Like, against anyone because of any kind of status that they have, right? So we're not worried about the bullies here, we're worried about the person being bullied. Lastly, I would make sure that Keith had these numbers saved in their phone. So the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, the Crisis Text Line, the Trevor Project has a texting line and a lifeline as well. And I would make sure that he knows some safe adults to go to in the school. There's some basic information backing my decisions. This is a quick link. It's the Trevor Project, the 2022 survey, and it has all kinds of statistics about how LGBTQ youth are existing in public school systems right now. It's really important, I think, for all teachers to familiarize themselves with some of these statistics. Most importantly, they have, well, not most importantly, one of the most important resources that I found on their page is this model school district policy on suicide prevention. And it has like modeled language and resources and commentary, that's all in the title, that can help a school better their district policy on suicide prevention, taking into account the extraordinary impact that suicide has on the LGBTQ community. In this commentary, they say that the LGBTQ community, members of the LGBTQ community are 4.5 times more likely to commit suicide. And they clarify and say it's not their sexual orientation or gender identity that place LGBTQ youth at greater risk of suicidal behavior, but rather these societal and external factors. So in this scenario, the school becomes the societal and external factors, the way they are treated, shunned, abused, or neglected in concert with other individual factors such as mental health history. So after reading this case study, it became clear to me that Keith is at extraordinary risk for suicide right now. And it might not seem urgent just by talking to Keith or observing Keith, but it is really, really important for teachers to at least maintain a baseline level of respect and to clarify expectations with other students about how to treat one another. From the Trevor Project as well, in this commentary, they continue on to say that schools have a responsibility to intervene in situations in the school environment that exacerbate a student's risk, which this is a situation, particularly when the risk was known to the school. And this does not mean that the school, a response would be to move Keith. I mean, if the bullying got to extreme levels, they might suggest a movement. But I still, after reading this case, believe that the best intervention comes from the source, comes from bullying. Because wearing a wig to school, I mean, I still think a teacher has a lot of power to direct the conversation and to de-escalate the situation. And maybe our powers don't extend online, but at least in the school, we have a responsibility to intervene in these types of situations and to make sure that Keith has the same amount of access to education as the other students. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to hearing your opinions and discussions in the comments.